There you go. All right, let me introduce Azgar Ali as one of our most famous alum from MEM from the last year. He's currently a TPM at Google, senior TPM, as I recall, right?
Yeah, it's just TPM. Like we have a
Just
TPM.
TPM? Maybe I'm promoting you too quickly. Okay, he's a
Yeah.
TPM, soon to be senior TPM. Azgar is going to be talking to us tonight about cybersecurity. He's done a lot of study in this area. He's done a lot of work. I believe he even achieved some certifications. I'm sure he'll talk about that whole process he went through, but more importantly, some of the things we need to know as professionals, either in engineering management, product development, or any other, I guess, aspect of IT management that many of us are pursuing. I don't see MEM students per se on here, but I think we're seeing students from OPE, the Office of Professional Ed. So I want to welcome you all. Welcome Azgar, and I'll turn it over to him, and I'm sure he'll be sharing his screen, and we'll take it from here.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Mark. Thank you for the generous introduction. So just a quick introduction about myself. I'm Azgar. Like I just graduated from Northwestern last year in June. And before that, I was working in India for about 8 to 9 years there in both like technology related things as well as in academics with government. So before I go on to that, a quick background on the certificate course which Professor was mentioning. This is apart from my engineering, I completed like a postgraduate diploma in cyber laws and cyber forensics from National Law School of India. So that is what like Professor was mentioning about, which is where my grounding on cyber laws and cyber related matters come in. So on that note, I will just share my screen and get started here. So yeah, at any point in the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me and then like ask questions, whatever you have. So yeah, let's get started. So this will be the agenda. First, I will just give a brief introduction about what cybersecurity is and what is threat modeling, and then like we go for the targets that attackers generally target towards. Like it could be individuals, organization, nation states, and then we will discuss different dimensions of cybersecurity, and then different threats, and then advances and challenges that are happening in the current times, and then how cybersecurity threats are addressed. So this is something which we will touch as we are closer to the completion of the presentation. And roles are the different dimensions like where cybersecurity professionals can enter into. It could be on the technical side, managerial side, or the legal side of things. So on that note, first, what is cybersecurity? So this refers to the measures that are adopted to protect the widespread network systems that we have today. So as you all are aware, in the last few decades, internet has spread beyond our imagination, and everything is getting online now. So on that particular development, the attacks on this network is also proportionately increasing. So how do we protect that, and how do we address the issues that arise because of this type of attacks? So that is what is cybersecurity all about. So it might relate to the tools, it might relate to the technique, it relates to the measures, it relates to the policies, and it's a continuously evolving field, as you will be seeing in the course of this presentation. So before I move on to the topics that I mentioned, I would like to introduce a very core concept in network systems and cybersecurity. So this is what we call as CIA triad. So the word CIA refers to three different concepts there. So C refers to the confidentiality, I refers to integrity, and then A refers to accessibility. So what it means is if you have a network system which has some data on it or some information on it, this has to be confidential. That is, only those who are required to know should have access to this data. Unauthorized access should be prevented. That is what C refers to in the confidentiality in the CIA triad there. And then we need to have integrity as well. So once the person has access to the data, he should be or she should be sure that the data that is being accessed is what was intended to be accessed. So it shouldn't be manipulated by some malicious actor in between or some vested interest. So that is what integrity refers to. And then comes accessibility. So once you have confidentiality and integrity assured, you also need to ensure that the systems are accessible whenever like the authorized person is required to access it. So it can't be that like sometimes it is getting accessed and sometimes it is not. So then it's not a good security system, or the network system doesn't have good security then, because whenever there is an access required, someone can stop that access. So if that type of thing happens, then it's really not good scenario there. So this is what is referred to as cybersecurity triad. And each of this component has different tools and techniques to ensure that this happens. So for instance, in case of confidentiality, we have different ways how data access is allowed and it's not allowed. Say for instance, Bell LaPadula is a model which is used wherein if you assume you have a tiered access, like you have general data, secret data, and then top secret data. So the access is decided on basis of read and write on information systems like computers, networks, and all. So here in Bell LaPadula model, what happens is you have read in particular way assigned and write in particular way assigned. So say for instance, a person is having access of secret. So he is not allowed to read files which are above his level. That is top secret documents he can't read. Whereas he can read everything that goes below. So that is he can read secret and then like he can read the general information. But in case of write, it is like you can't write it down. You can write it always upwards. So say a person who has access to a top secret document, he can read everything that goes below, as I said earlier, but he can't write everything that goes below him, below his access level. It might seem counterintuitive why a person who has top secret access is not able to write at a level which is lower than his access. That is again to ensure confidentiality there. So by mistake, if he writes into something like say a secret level, which is one level below, and then there is a possibility of information leak because a top secret person might leak a top secret information to to a tier which is lower than his level. So that's the reason write access is allowed only going upwards and not downwards, whereas read access is allowed only downwards and not upwards. So this is one of the technique how information access is managed in confidentiality C of that CIA triad. And likewise for integrity, we have different measures and techniques. So some of them include like digital signatures, digital certificates, which in turn use like methods like encryption, decryption, and hashing algorithms for ensuring that the data is not tampered and non-repudiating. So that's about integrity. And finally, access. Again, we have different types of attacks being prevented. Like one such example is distributed denial of service attack, where a malicious actor would bring down the service and make it not accessible to people who are legitimate users. So this can be prevented by ensuring we have like measures to prevent this type of accessibility attacks like distributed denial of service attack. So yeah, then we move on to the targets. So before I move on, any questions so far? If you have any questions, please feel free to ask at this point, or you can drop your questions into the chat box there. If not, then we move ahead. So who are the targets? So it can be an individual, it can be an organization, it can be nation state, uh, that is countries. So these are all the different targets for a malicious actor who wants to do some, who wants to identify a cybersecurity loophole and then leverage it. So these loopholes are something called as vulnerabilities. These are the flaws which are there in the network system, which reduces the security of the device if it is present on that particular device or on the particular network. So these vulnerabilities can be exploited, and those codes which are written to exploit these vulnerabilities are called as exploits in cybersecurity terminology. So exploits and vulnerabilities go hand in hand. So if you don't have a vulnerability, you can't write an exploit unless like there has to be a loophole. That's what I'm trying to say. So for instance, 0-day security attacks which you might have come across. So these are those vulnerabilities which were not aware by the developer, which were not aware like till the point it was detected by someone. So it was shipped, the product was shipped, and we had this vulnerability into the product, and nobody was aware of it till the point someone attacked or someone came up with a patch for that. So that is what is vulnerability. And these vulnerabilities, when they are leveraged even before the patch has been provided to that vulnerability, then those are exploits which can be used for good or for bad. Sometimes the exploits are written by hackers, like white hat hackers whom we call, who work on the ethical side of things, and they write it because this allows an insight into how the vulnerability can be exploited. So this is exactly what is called the concept of honeypots. When you invite a attacker or a malicious actor and try to understand his pattern, behavioral pattern, as to what he will be doing, and then get that insights and then use that in developing your software in your security policies and products. So how do you do that? So this is what we call as threat modeling. There are various ways in which threat modeling can be done. So the basic principles behind threat modeling involves creating a persona of the potential attacker. So if you are running a small business, if you're running a big company, or if you are managing countries' critical infrastructure, or on the other hand, you might just be an individual who is a software developer who is trying to develop a product. So depending upon what your use case and what your stakes are, you have to identify who are your potential attackers. So you start from there. This is something like when a product manager tries to come up with a product, the first thing that he does is to understand who its users are going to be. So that is what is called as persona creation. So likewise, when a security policy is being designed, the the person who is creating the security policy should understand who the attackers are going to be. That is, created persona of the potential attacker, and then try to understand what are the motives, what could be the driving factors for this person to attack the systems there. So that is giving an estimate of what his intentions are, what is its capabilities. So it's like a full spectrum analysis of his capabilities and motives there. So that is the second step in the threat modeling process. And then finally, based on this information, try to identify what are all the potential means through which this attack can be performed on this particular system. If it's like a say a product that you are developing, if it's a the critical infrastructure of the country, so it could be a state sponsored actor who is trying to say bring down the electricity grid. So you need to identify what are the potential ways in which the attack can be done, and those are called as attack vectors. And then once you have identified all this, then you have to prepare defense by taking each of this as a case and then trying to develop the security policy around it. So that is exactly what is preparing for the last point, which mentions they're preparing against specific threats. So when a product development happens, so all the principles that go into, say, for instance, a particular aspect of security, let us say privacy, when all the things that are considered when the development process itself is taken up, then it's something like a framework which is called as privacy by design. So likewise, we have different frameworks to develop cybersecurity models which help us act against specific threats. So this is threat modeling in cybersecurity. And then why an organization can be attacked or an individual can be attacked. So in case of organization, there are different reasons why it can get attacked. So it could be because it has certain IP rights which the malicious actors want, or it could be the sensitive data that this organization is managing, or it could be the competitor who just wants to bring you down by hacking into your systems, or it could be in some instances where the organization is very reputed and it is a critical organization, then it can be easy target for a cyber warfare just to bring down the organization and cripple the critical infrastructure of that country. And this organization can be public, can be private, or can be autonomous bodies, you never know. And likewise, just for the sake of reputational damage, which could involve big organization, and in turn, because this organization are part of countries growing economy, in a way it is like a reputational damage not only for organization but also for countries where these organizations are like existing. And then like financial fraud can be another motive. They would like the attackers might want to just steal money from the organization's bank accounts or something like that. And then another reason why a cyber attack can happen on an organization is because of the weak security policies that the organizations might have implemented. So that makes it an easy target for the attackers without much investment on their time and resources. And then, as I mentioned in the reputational damage and cyber warfare, high profile target can be an easy source for getting attacked. These are just some examples why that I have mentioned why an organization can get a cybersecurity attack, but it is not like mutually exclusive. There are lots of overlaps, and also it is not exhaustive as well. So there are different other reasons which are not mentioned here. So these are not the only reason. These are some of the prominent reasons, I would put it that way. So moving forward, we will see organizations are not the only targets, but nation states itself, where countries can become targets. So these are some examples that I have come across in the last few years. The first one is a very well-known one. It is Iran's uranium nuclear enrichment plan. This was attacked through a very advanced threat called as, through advanced malware called as Stuxnet. So here they targeted the industrial control systems, which are nothing but supervisory control and acquisition systems, which are used for monitoring the industrial processes. So they targeted a particular hardware device which was manufactured by Siemens, which is called as programmable logic controller, and then they made sure that it sabotaged their plan or whatever was the motive there. So this could have not been done by a entity like a person sitting on the back of a computer or someone. So it requires a coordinated advance uh, like it's just like the the energy or the resources available for the attackers here was way too high than what an individual could be doing. And these type of attacks come under the class called as APT attacks. So these are driven by a particular motive, and they have large backing of resources behind, and they work in a very coordinated way. So it's not for the motive like financial gains alone. So it could be for various other social or political reasons. So this is one such very predominant attack on a nuclear plant. And next comes Ukraine's power grid was attacked in 2015. This was considered as the first cyber attack on a power grid. So this showed cyber attacks can bring down critical infrastructures like power grid. So that is one example there. And then in the current times, the Ukraine conflict has been well documented as to how the cyber threats are, or the landscape of the cyber threat is changing. Uh, and the research was done by again Google's threat analysis group, Mandiant, and then trust and security team there. And the report is easily available. You can click through this link and you can get access to that report and the findings there. And likewise, big organizations in US were targeted in 2010. Organizations included Morgan Stanley, Google, Adobe Systems, Honeywell, and so many other organizations. So this was considered as Operation Aurora. So uh, this is available on like YouTube as a hacking Google project, and it's a set of small documentaries and videos which documents how uh, companies like Google are every day fighting against this type of threats. So some of them come to limelight and some of them doesn't. So this is an example of industrial control system that I was speaking about. You have a production network here where industries are having some processes which are controlled by advanced machinery there, and in this case it was PLC, programmable logic controllers. So these are the controllers which allow actuators to be activated, and then sensors to be deployed. I mean, you use the sensor data, and then depending upon the data and the programming that has been done, either run a process or stop a process, something of that sort. And this entire network is controlled by what is called as SCADA systems, so supervisory control and acquisition of data. So this system was targeted in that particular incident which I mentioned some time back in Iran. So this is a very sophisticated attack, and how this is just an example to cite how sophisticated attack can get. And the whole attack process was going on for almost like 6-7 months, and it was only when International Energy Atomic Energy Agency went and did the inspection, they found that the centrifuges that were used were failing at a more faster rate than what it should be. And only then, when a deeper investigation was launched, they realized that these were the problems there. So any questions so far? Okay, if there are no questions, then we move on to the dimensions that a cyber attack can take. So it can have a technical dimension to it, it can have a managerial or organizational dimension to it, and there is also a legal or regulatory dimension to it. So let us see each of this one by one. So in technical dimension, what happens is uh, like cybersecurity is evolving because of the developments in technology that's happening. So now, as the society evolves, as the technological developments take place, the cybersecurity has to evolve to keep up with the sophisticated attack patterns that are getting evolved. So some of them in the last few years that have developed include like HTTPS. So what happens in HTTPS is you have like your computer OSI model where you have different layers to it. So in case of I'm not going too much into detail. I'm not sure what the background of the listeners are, but just to give a brief introduction about what OSI model is, it's an abstraction of the different way in which the processors are handled in a network topology. So now there are there is a physical layer at the bottom where actually your data travels through cables and optic fibers and whatnot. And then as you go higher and higher, the abstraction level keeps increasing. So you have a physical layer, and then data link layer, and then network layer, and then sessions layer, and then presentation, and then transport. So something of those sort. And at the bottom, at the top of it sits the application layer. So HTTPS encrypts the data and then like provide security measures at the transport layer. There is one of the layer there. So there are different measures to have security at different layers in this, but HTTPS is one of the web browsing secure socket layer there. So that is HTTPS. And then digital certificates are another way in which like cyber security measures can be implemented. So these certificates ensure that the the document that has been signed, or the website that you are visiting is authentic, and then like there is no, I mean it's a credible source, it's not something which is malicious. So that is what these digital certificates at the end of the day try to do. So and they ensure the integrity of the data. So so it is, they certify that the body which has the digital signature, or the entity who has the digital signature, is authentic. So that is what digital certificate does. It's just like a legitimate entity created who ensures that whoever applies for the digital signatures, they verify the credentials of that entity and then issues them the digital certificate. So if you see the website here, like if you see here like sites the connection is secure. So if you click this, I am not sure if you're seeing the screen or not, if it is getting shared or not, but you can always like just click your browser the lock symbol there, and then you can access the certificate there. So if you see what is the common name issued to, so you will see different details about this particular certificate, like who is it issued to, which is the organization who issued it, and then when was this issued, and when is it going to expire, and how is this I mean what are the hash values there. So those sort of things. So digital signatures are just that if you are sending a digital document, it just ensures like a physical signature that it is you who have signed this document. And addition to not only identifying you, but it also shares that the data has not been tampered with from the time it was signed to the time it has reached you or whoever is accessing it. So that's what digital signatures try to do. And then comes like encryption decryption. This is another development like which happened in the field of network security, where you encrypt the data so that others don't access it. And then at the receiving side of this encrypted data, you decrypt, you perform the reverse process to remove back the original plain text that you encrypted in the first place. And in the recent times, there are new developments like deep fakes and then AI and automated decision making. So all these things are the developments that are happening in the technological front, and cybersecurity has to evolve to address this developments. If it doesn't, then there will always be victims of attack through this new developments. So this is about the technical dimension of cybersecurity, and there is a managerial and organizational dimension as well, because the organization exists for a purpose, and it sustains over a period of time. The cybersecurity measures, because the organizations are having digital presence today, needs to be continuously evolving and sustainable over the organization's existence period. So that directly relates to the goals of the organization and how much digital presence it has, what sort of data it handles, and what sort of governance model it has around this data. So those are the managerial aspects or the organizational aspects that the organizations have to take into consideration. So to give you an example, let us take Equifax, which is one of the credit rating agencies for in the United States. So there was an attack on this organization, and the data was stolen from this organization. So it led to people's credit card details being leaked, and then their social security numbers being leaked. So that is a loophole because of the data governance model that was used by this organization. So later it was realized, I mean, they did come up with mitigating measures to address this attack, but nevertheless it was a big reputational damage for the organization, and it does have business implications as well. So this is the managerial dimension when I speak about cybersecurity. So it's not just that you have to prevent yourself from getting attacked, but it can directly go on to uh, attacking the very exist the purpose for which the very existence of organization is there. So cybersecurity has that I mean, cyber attacks have that potential to do. So that is where a good cybersecurity policy has to be implemented in an organization. So, and then, as I said, for product developments, like you need to incorporate new developments such as privacy by design, which is a new framework, or rather a framework which was in existence, but more emphasized in the current times because of the developments that are happening in the social context. And that takes us to the next dimension of cybersecurity, that is the legal or regulatory requirements. So here you have like preventive measures, and then responsive measures, and we will see it in the strategy as to how a cybersecurity attack is prevented. So you see that these guidelines that are created through legal measures and regulatory measures try to address it at different stages of that response, or that strategy phases. So for instance, once the crime has been committed, so what are the laws that deal with it? So that is basically your cyber crimes. And generally it has direct relation with the regular crimes. And the very principle of crime is detailed in this Latin concept called as mens rea. So what happens in mens rea is, when a particular crime has been committed, the judge sees whether there was an intention to commit the crime. So when the crime was happening, what was the intent of the person who was committing this crime? So then there are laws surrounding it to deal with it, in case of cyber landscape as well. So whether a person tries to do a identity theft, for example, so did this person deliberately do it? What was the motive of this person? So now that we know that this person has committed the act of doing that, like impersonating someone, whether it was intentionally done and with a malicious intent. So that's exactly what mens rea is there. So this is after the attacks have been done, to determine whether a crime has been committed or not committed. There are many laws related to that. I'm not going, I mean, I'm not even scratching the surface. This talk is way too limited, and it's just exposing you to the content of cyber security and the related aspects. I'm not going detail. This is just a caveat that I'm giving to the listeners. So that's about mens rea. And then you have privacy related guidelines, which is a very big topic now. So you have I mean, the regulations which have come in the last 1 decade, such as GDPR, that is General Data Protection Regulations, which is the privacy regulation surrounding the European region. So this was implemented somewhere in 2016, and then it was passed somewhere in 16 and then implemented from 2018, I believe, if I'm not wrong. So that is about GDPR. And then you have in United States HIPAA, which is like one of the regulatory requirements which every health related product developer has to keep in mind when he is developing a product, because it directly addresses the secure I mean the privacy aspect of the individuals on health related matters. So likewise, we have a state specific law, which is CCPA here. So this is California Consumer Protection Act, where there are requirements for companies which come up with digital I mean which deal with data, like identifiable data, personally identifiable data, what we call as PIIs, personally identifiable information, if I'm not wrong. That is the abbreviation of for the PII. So CCPA ensures there are guidelines surrounding this as to how a customer's data has to be handled. And then likewise, we have financial credit reporting, like FCRA Act there, so which requires financial data to be reported to the to the regulatory authorities. So one such example is how this is related to what the powers law enforcement authorities have. So geofence warrant is one such thing. So where it's like, on one hand you have like all the privacy related things to be followed, but on the other hand, once someone else's law has been violated, how do you address that? So this is one such tool. Geofence warrant is one such tool where law enforcement authorities get this warrant, and within a particular area, all the devices, all the network devices, like such as mobile phones, tablets, everything can be taken under custody and then investigated for some potential evidence or something. So that is what geofence warrant means. So I'm just giving a brief, like brief information about these things, so that the information, the different dimensions of cybersecurity is made aware here. So this is what is the intention of this slide here. So now, as we move on, we just take a case study of encryption, which is a technical dimension. So how exactly Google data centers are protected through encryption. So this is just a 3-minute video. Please let me know if audio is coming when I play this. So is it audible?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
audio is good.
Great.
When you use a Google service, your information travels over the internet between your app and various points of internet infrastructure until it reaches Google servers. Encryption helps prevent attackers from eavesdropping on internet connections and accessing sensitive content such as your credentials, emails, and other personal data. Do you know how Google encrypts data to keep it safe? Stick around and we'll show you. First things first, what is encryption? Well, it's a mathematical process that takes legible data as input and transforms it so that it's unreadable to unauthorized parties. The encryption algorithm used is public, such as the Advanced Encryption Standard AES. But execution depends on a key, which is kept secret. To transform it back to its original form, you need to employ the key. Google encrypts your data when it's saved on a disk and when stored on backup media, and this is called encryption at rest. It also encrypts data while it is moving over the internet or traveling between data centers, which is called encryption in transit. Starting with data at rest, several layers of encryption are deployed to protect users' data. Data is split into chunks. Each chunk is encrypted with a unique data encryption key. These keys are stored with the data and encrypted inside of Google's central key management service. Google's key management service rotates keys at least as frequently as 90 days, so in the very unlikely event that a key were compromised, it won't remain valid for very long. How about a real-life example to put all of this into context? Let's say a video is uploaded to Google Drive. That video will not be stored entirely in a single server, but instead will be broken up into chunks, and then copied for availability and performance. Each of these chunks are encrypted and have their own unique identifier. Each piece is then stored across multiple servers. As for data in transit, Google applies several security measures to help ensure the authenticity, integrity, and privacy of data in transit. Depending on the connection that is being made, Google applies default protections to data in transit to a Google data center. For example, communications are secured between the user and the Google front end using TLS, which is a cryptographic protocol. Data is encrypted and authenticated in transit at one or more network layers when it moves outside the physical boundaries of a Google data center. Customers in Google Cloud, for example, may have additional requirements for encryption of data, especially in highly regulated industries, and they have additional options such as managing their own encryption keys. And because computers get better and faster, it becomes easier to perform the complicated mathematical computations needed to break encryption. Even the mathematics behind this process, known as cryptanalysis, can improve over time, making it easier to break encryption. And so to keep pace with this evolution, Google has a team of world-class security engineers tasked with following, developing, and improving encryption technology. Our engineers take part in standardization processes and in maintaining widely used encryption software such as Boring Crypto, an SSL library in Chrome, Chromium, Android, and a number of other apps and programs. We regularly publish research in the field of encryption so that everyone can benefit from this shared knowledge. If you want to learn more, check out the links below and stay tuned for more on discovering data centers.
So yeah, that was a quick case study of how encryption is used in protecting the data which passes through Google servers. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, encryption is just one of the way in which cybersecurity is ensured. So you have like different other techniques in which like data is protected across the devices across the cloud, across different regions. So yeah, so that is about the dimensions there, and with one case study of technology dimension. So before we move on, I would like to give an overview of what is the next slide about. So this is about threats. So what are different forms of like cyber attacks? So what happens there? And before we go to that, so we see how the internet itself is organized and where exactly these attacks are originating from, and how this can be mitigated. So the whole internet can be divided into three categories. One is surface web, and then the second one is deep web, and then comes the dark web. So you might have heard about these terms in one place or the other, but what exactly these terms refer to is based on a very simple concept of how do you access this data. So on a surface web, whatever you see, say for example on Google search or like Facebook, LinkedIn. So this data that is available, which is easily accessible when you do a Google search or Bing search or any other search, is the data which is indexed by the search engines across the world, and it can be searched easily. So that is what is referred to as surface web. So say for instance, a website of Northwestern University. So that's an indexed page, so it's easily accessible. So the next part is deep web. Here, what happens is this is a legitimate data again, but only authorized users can access this. It's not like easily available on say a Google search, for instance. So, for example, your specific NU Caesar record or your uh, like Canvas assignment that you submit on Canvas. So those are not something which can be easily searched through Google search. So because these pages are not indexed, so you access it and you have credentials provided by the institution, and it's not searchable on open web. That's what I'm trying to say. That is your deep web, and it includes all sorts of data, and this is a major chunk of internet actually. So the surface web represents only about 10% of the internet. So a significant percentage of data is residing in deep web and dark web there. So other examples of deep web include hospital databases, financial databases, organizations internal databases. So all these are examples of deep web. And as I said, it is not indexed. You can't directly access it through search engines. But if you have credentials, you can always access this. Then comes the last part, which is the dark web, or also known as darknet. So this content is not easily accessible and definitely not available on surface web. So how do you access this content then? You need specific softwares and specific plugins to access this particular data on this dark web. So, so for instance, Tor browsing is one of the example. Like you have a Tor browser, which is the onion router basically. So you have like different sorts of encryption used there to access this particular data. And one such example is the recently busted, or rather like some years ago, this Silk Road was a place which is something like Amazon on darknet. So you can buy all the illegal contraband stuff there, and it was leading to lots of like felony related activities. So essentially, this was busted by FBI, and that's one example of dark web there. So this is how the internet is organized, if I have to put it, in terms of the data accessibility. So now, through this, sometimes most of the attacks, once they happen, the data that is stolen is generally like available on the dark web, and it can be like accessed through by paying like bitcoins or something of that sort. So that is what like this type of like platforms allow you for, like the Silk Road and all those. But as I said, it's illegal. But again, what you do and what you not do, we have to be careful about whether it is within the bounds of law or whether it is violating the law. So now, what are the different attack vectors? So these are like some common examples that you might have come across. So I will not go too much into detail of each of this, but just to give you a fair idea about each of this, I will briefly explain them. So ransomware attacks are those attacks where your device is compromised and the whole device is encrypted. And to decrypt that device, the attackers or the malicious actors ask you to deposit some money in the form of either bitcoins or in the form of other cryptocurrencies, or like even cash in some time. or bank deposits. So that's your ransomware attacks. And in 2020, with many people shifting to like online world because of COVID, ransomware attacks were also drastically increasing. So that was one of the big cybersecurity attacks, which not only affected individuals but also big organizations, and it costed huge sum of money for organizations to recover from that. So that's about ransomware attack. IoT attacks are those attacks where, because the surface area or the radius of the attack is increasing, uh, your IoT devices allow the actors to I mean, even if a single device is getting compromised somewhere, then that device can be used to access data from the other devices as well, because of the way how IoT devices interact with each other. So that's your IoT attack. Cloud attacks, again, with everything going on cloud these days, if a cloud is compromised in terms of, say, non-availability of data for the organizations who maintain the data on cloud, so that is one sort of an attack. And other sort of attacks could include completely removing the data and making it not accessible. So these are the different types of possibilities on cloud attack. And then phishing is, it's more of what to say, uh, like creating a spoof of a original or a authentic page and believing the web page or the email to be from a legitimate source. So that's your phishing attack. So likewise, you have phishing attack where like a voice call is made and then like try to like people try to extort money or do something so that you reveal your credit card information or any other personally identifiable information there. So social engineering attacks are not even I mean, I would not call it a technologically sophisticated attack, but it depends on the behavior of the person. So they leverage the behavioral tendencies of people who use this devices like mobile phone or computers, and then like make them reveal the information which ideally they would not be revealing. So that's your social engineering attacks there. DDoS is distributed denial of service attack, which we saw some time back, which we spoke about some time back, where a website is brought down by sending it lots and lots of requests to respond, and the server is not able to keep up with this request. So that's when a legitimate user who is trying to access a particular website is not able to do so. So that is your distributed denial of service attack. Code injection is, say, for example, when you are doing a query on database, and this is SQL, MySQL. So like type of languages use this databases. When you insert a query, you drop the whole like database or the table that maintains the data. So that is your code injection there. So this is like a traditional attack which was happening before, but now there are like many defenses which have been brought up against this type of attacks. So although it's not very common, but still yes, this is one of the like cybersecurity attack which usually uses to happen. And then juice jacking is when you plug in your mobile phone at airports or some other places. The plug port, the USB port that you use, can be a way in which not only your device is getting charged, but also your data that is stored on the device is being used by malicious actors. So the data gets copied to some other device, and then uh, you're not able to, I mean, rather like they use that data to do some illegal things. So that is what is juice jacking. So you have to be careful about where you charge your phones. And Android, Apple, they all allow you to like have a setting where you just connect the phone on charge but no data transfer. So whenever you connect it to unknown devices or unknown USB cables. And then scareware is, again, it's like a behavioral tendency but making you click into something, and they try to mimic the operating system, regular Windows, and then try to say you have to click here, if not something will happen, and those sort of things. So your phone is having a virus or a laptop is having a virus, please click here and then clean it up, something of those sort. So pretexting is, again, it's done through a phone call, and then you pass on the phone call to another person within the same organization, and then try to do things which ideally a legitimate person would not be doing. So this is another attack on organizations, and as well as it can be individuals as well. And then cyber squatting is taking up someone else's website and like making that organization not to have that website. So there are different ways of cyber squatting. So one is known as renewal snatching, where every organization has to renew its domain because domain is registered only for a specific period. And if renewal is not done and if someone else renews it, then you don't have access to that, like if you were owning that particular like domain. And another form of it is you just have close names or pseudo names which sound similar to the original website. Say for example, whitehouse.gov is authentic website of United States government, whereas whitehouse.org is a spoof website, but people tend to believe that whitehouse.org can be a legitimate website as well. So that is another form of cyber squatting there. So as we move on, I take one particular example where google.com was owned by someone else for 1 minute, and this person is Sanmay Ved. He is a Googler right now. So he was working with Google as well before, but when he owned this particular website, that is google.com, he was not with Google. So what happened was, for some reason, someone missed it and dropped the ball, and they did not do the renewal of the google.com website. And he saw that google.com was available on Google domains, and when he tried to register that, it got registered and website became his. And within minute, Google security reached out to him, and then they said like it has been cancelled, but the transaction had gone through. So then Google paid him some money, but again, his intent was not to do anything malicious, but he just showed that like, yeah, this type of a loophole also exists in such a big organization. So when he said that like it was not it is always about money, he said like, once I get the money, I will be donating it. Google as well like gave double the amount of what they initially offered, because he was anyhow giving all the money to charity, and then he gave that money to Art of Living Foundation in India, I believe. So this is one example of cyber squatting that I was explaining about in the previous slide here. So now, any questions so far? I know I'm doing lots of talking.
I guess I have a question in terms of like VPN.
Yeah.
When should I use a VPN and when should I not use a VPN, or should I basically have it on all the time?
So VPN allows you to have a virtual private network. So if you are not within the same network, it just creates a network through internet. So it's there is no hard and fast rule of when you have to use, but if a security policy requires you to use a VPN to access the website, then you have to use the website. So I mean, you have to use VPN.
I mean, if I'm on a public Wi-Fi and I'm transacting with my bank, should I use a VPN or
Yes.
am I in trouble either way?
Yeah, I think if you are on a public network and if you are just logging in directly into your bank website, then there is very much possibility that the Wi-Fi provider or the person who is providing you the Wi-Fi might have access to the like credentials that you will be signing in with. But nevertheless, the browsers are very secure today. They actually encrypt the data when you're like entering the credentials. But still, having said that, it is advisable not to access bank websites and very other sensitive websites through public networks.
Okay.
So,
All right,
so yeah,
thanks.
having a VPN would make it more secured in that way.
Are they all the same? If I use the Google One VPN, is it the same as all the others, or are some VPNs more robust than others?
It's essentially how at the back end how your data is handled by the organization that decides how good the VPN is. Because VPN is nothing but some other service provider giving you a virtual network to access your original network. So it's essentially comes down to the vendor who is providing you the VPN, how secured he is, and what his intents are.
Well, I use Google honestly as my VPN. Google One, it's a premium feature that I pay. I don't really have to pay that much for it, but it seems to work pretty well and pretty transparently.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, as I showed in the slide before, like how your data is handled by Google, that makes it more secure. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Because even within Google, like as a Googler, we can't access anyone's data. Like there are lots of restrictions around accessing customer data, and everything is audited. So it's not that like just because you are in Google, anyone can have access to anyone's data.
Right.
So yeah, moving forward. Yeah, advances and challenges. So what are the challenges that we are like encountering as we are going forward? So there are lots of developments that are happening in the digital world today, and that brings us to different challenges in cybersecurity as well. So one of the most important is privacy challenge, and because as I said, the space on which the attack can happen has been considerably increasing because of new devices, new platforms, and whatnot. So this is a vulnerability which can be exploited, and the private data can be compromised. So that are the privacy challenges there. And like data is distributed, it is not at one place now, and then you have lots of legal gray areas. Say for instance, if a new product is coming where there are no laws, how the data is going to be handled around that space. So those type of challenges will lead to like security, I mean cyber security challenges, which is very difficult to resolve once the attack has happened or some malicious thing has happened because of that. So that's about the privacy challenges and prompt engineering by malicious actors. So what essentially this means is, as we are all aware, like ChatGPT and Bard and other generative AI applications have made lots of noise. So these generative AI applications are not driven by what to say intent, although they make automated decision making, but how they respond to your query, it depends on how you give the prompt to it. So to give you an example, this was mentioned by the product manager who developed Bard here internally in Google. So Bard is Google's version of ChatGPT, I would say. So here there was a mathematical problem given to this generative AI application Bard, and this is a mathematical problem where 95% of the world's population would be making mistake. So just like some tricky question, and Bard as well made that same mistake. But the same question was provided again to untrained model again, of course. And before that question was provided, the AI model was said, Bard, you are very helpful chatbot, and you are like a MIT mathematician. Can you please help me solve this problem? So when that prompt was given, and later the same question which Bard got wrong before was given, this time the Bard made it right. So what changed between the two instances? So it's mainly the computation way it handled when the prompt was given in a different way is different, because uh, when it was said that like you are like an MIT mathematician, please help me, it applied those set of rules which MIT mathematicians would generally apply. Whereas when it was just asked to solve this problem, it applied the general rules of what normally people would do. So how you prompt or how you give the prompt to this chatbots will decide what sort of outcome you are going to get. So with chatbots becoming more and more advanced, the prompt can be engineered by malicious actors to do things which otherwise is not to be done. So these are the challenges that are emerging in cybersecurity now. So for example, if someone is not knowing English and if they want to create a very legitimately looking document of say some bank or something, so ChatGPT can help you create exactly a document like that which otherwise was not accessible before. So these are the challenges that are arising there. And then the next development is quantum computers. So our encryption is dependent on the philosophy that it will take a very, very long time for our best computers to break the code. But quantum computers are altogether a different category. And here, instead of the regular electrical states where bits are stored, the spin of an electron or a particle or a quantum particle is used to store the bits. And because of the way how quantum mechanics works or the principles of quantum mechanics work, you have a system wherein two different states can be present at the same time, and these states can be used for mathematical computation. And recently Google's quantum computer has reached a stage of quantum advantage, which essentially means that a quantum computer able to solve a problem which a general computer would be taking years to solve, so within minutes. So quantum computer solves it within minutes, whereas a general computer will be taking several years or thousands of years to solve. So that state has been attained, so it essentially means quantum advantage has been secured. But next step is quantum supremacy. So when this happens, then we will have to change the way how the encryptions work in banks today, how we keep our passwords today. So all these things will have to change. So it is not too far, but yeah, the developments are happening in that direction. So it's like a double-edged sword. On one hand, it creates challenges for the way how we manage cybersecurity today. But on the other hand, it also prevents eavesdropping on the data that is transferred, because it would be very difficult for one to hack a quantum communication that happens between two different devices. So that is like a enhancement or betterment in like cyber security. So this is like a double-edged sword. The applications have to be explored, and developments have to be studied. So but nevertheless, if quantum computers become like prevalent like how general computers are today, then we will definitely have to change the encryption and decryption standards that we use as measures of cybersecurity in the present times. So automotive hacking. So everyone is like aware of the EV market. So we have Tesla, but as you're aware, like entire like all the EV companies are moving towards data-driven models for like like everything literally. So how the model is trained, how the autopilot works, and everything. There was a competition which is held for hacking. There is a competition which is held every year in Las Vegas for hacking. So this is DEF CON. So here, the Tesla was hacked within 2 minutes. So how did they do that? Like they just exploited some vulnerability in the in the communication protocol that is used, and they showed that like automotive hacking is something which has to be taken seriously, and it can be the next frontier of cybersecurity. And we also know that most of them don't even use physical keys for unlocking the cars these days. So that uses RFID for unlocking the car. But now these RFIDs can be uh, like kind of leveraged by the malicious actor, and then create a separate key out of the signal that a person is sending to the car to unlock it and lock it. So using that and then cloning it on another device so they can unlock the car. So this is called as rollback. So this type of hacking attacks are increasing, and again, this and all are like cyber security related things. So these are just some sample examples of the new developments that are happening, which it's an indicative one. I have not covered everything in detail because it's beyond the scope of this particular presentation. On that note, we move on to the next topic, that is strategy. How do we address the cybersecurity challenges? So these are the four-pronged approach which are adopted in cybersecurity. Uh, it's deterrence, prevention, detection, and response. So before an attack happens, you deter and prevent them. And once the attack has happened, you detect and respond to that particular attack. So how do you, there are different measures and different techniques of how do you achieve it in different stages here. So for example, in case of deterrence, you have laws and regulations which deter people from doing something wrong. So create a high cost of attack. Like it's very difficult to break a encryption which is like say taking thousands of years to decrypt. So that is a high cost of attack. So it deters like for the actor from even attempting such type of things. And then low return on investment. So these are different ways in which like a deterrence can be achieved. Then comes prevention. So this is next layer of cybersecurity. So here you do the threat modeling, as I said in the earlier part of this presentation, identify the attack vector and then identify the probability of being used, and then do the evaluation, and then like come up with strategies to attack and like mitigate those. So that is the preventive stage. And then comes detection. So intrusion detection systems are the best example. You have firewalls and then demilitarized zones where once the attack happens, once some intruder comes in, it immediately detects and alerts the cybersecurity like professionals who are monitoring this like network. So that's like your detection there. And then response is incident response. So what are the policies surrounding an attack? Like how do you address that? How do you take the steps, actions, like once you know that attack has happened, how do you secure the data? So that is a part of response. So and then digital forensics, you do penetration testing to identify the loopholes and vulnerabilities. So for that, like different tools are used, like operating systems like Kali Linux, and then Parrot operating system, which is a security operating system. So this is the response phase. So this is a four-pronged approach, and the strategy and the solutions for cybersecurity are on different types. Like these are some like ways in which Google protects the data. So authentication is one way, and then code security, that is antivirus and IoT security. Then privacy, you have VPN, privacy browsers, ad blockers, parental controls, so all these things. Then you have secure productivity and then utilities. The whole cybersecurity solutions are categorized into 5 categories, and these are those. And then one such case study is of checks. So this is for privacy. And say you are developing a product and you have released it on Android Play Store. Now, how do you know that this product is adhering to all the standards and compliances that it is required to follow? So this is where checks, which is an AI-powered platform, comes in. So it immediately analyzes the app. It has the database of all the evolving regulations across the world, and then it gives you a report within minutes what and all is followed and what and all is not followed by this app. So this is like one of the measure in how privacy can be ensured on the apps that is there on Android platform. So yeah, this brings us to the last part of the presentation, as I said, an hour later. So if you have any questions, please do ask.
All right, Asgar, I thought you did a great job. I think you answered a lot of questions for me, at least. One thing that I noticed, like maybe you talked about it as IoT security, but today's automobile has smart keys, and these keys interact with the car. But the bad actors are intercepting these transmissions and downloading information that could effectively give them access to the car. So what I'm telling people, especially my family, is to get a Faraday pouch, which, basically is no, it doesn't have to be any bigger than something like this. And you can put your key in there overnight so that your key can't be scanned by the bad actors while you're sleeping, or even just by having it by the front door. These signals permeate the front door. So these folks don't have to come into your house to grab the information.
Exactly. So on that note, I also would like to highlight there are wallets which are available, which do the exact thing. Like they don't allow your credit card data to be cloned. So it's just like a Faraday cage again there. So you have like a cage sort of, I mean, like the mesh around that particular cage built, and that mesh prevents the data from being copied.
Right. Maybe we should hand out these Faraday pouches with Northwestern MEM logos. We can get
Absolutely.
Renaissance to make this the swag of the future.
I mean, I don't know if our vendor is selling logoed Verde pouches, but we can check into that.
Yeah, you can give wallets as a gift. Yeah.
Renaissance, this is a clear market opportunity, but I mean, let's face it, this is swag that only a nerd can love, right?
Yeah. So I hope this gave a good overview of what cybersecurity is, but it was just like at a top level. I did not go too much into details, no technical concepts there. But yeah, if I go too deep into details, it will be like a whole talk in itself.
A whole day. It would be a whole day. So no, listen, I want to thank you. Thank you for your time today. I know we've lost our audience, but what we're going to do is put this video on YouTube along with our other videos, and we can track the usage and kind of the access from there. We've been basically taping all of these seminars, so we're going to basically have all of these up there on the YouTube channel, and let's see how it fares. But again, thank you for your time and your expertise. It's clear that you know your stuff, and it's also clear that this is a very involved topic. I believe there's already master's degrees in cybersecurity. Am I right?
Yeah, there are some universities like which are providing master's degrees, and I'm sure like Northwestern can also consider it in the program, at least if not as a separate degree, at least as a specialization within like say computer science or AI and those sort of fields.
Well, I've been pushing for it for the last 2 years, ever since you got me focused on it. And we now have a minor in cybersecurity offered by MSIT. So that's Professor Randall Berry's program. As you know, that's a premium IT program, and they know their cyber. So their minor will be applicable to MEM students and any other OPE master's student who wants to take it. So thank you again for your time today. And, maybe we'll figure out a way that people like you can come back and get a minor or get a certificate or get, some sort of accreditation from Northwestern on cyber. But I think you've already got plenty of those, right?
Yeah, I mean, on that note, Google has recently launched a cybersecurity certificate. Maybe like just like a CSPO degree, CSPO certificate for our MEM students. This can be like planned for the students who are pursuing master's degree. It takes about a couple of months to prepare, but you do get a certificate, and it is graded. The content is curated like based on the needs of the industry. So that is
Do you recommend that students take a class or simply go online and do the whole thing
it's
online?
just online. You don't need to take a class. It's just online. I will share the link with you, or maybe after the call, I will send it to you an email. And it's
Okay.
a Coursera certificate, I guess. Like it's in association with Coursera. So Google recently launched it.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Azgar, and we'll call it a day. And hopefully this didn't take up too much of your time, but we appreciate your time and the quality of your presentation.
Thank you, Professor. It was my pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Ren.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Ren. Bye-bye.
Bye.